Okay, these are some topics of MIS interest, sort of general interest here. First one is the bring your own device. Have some interesting occurrences with that. Why do you want to bring your own device? Well, you your company may decide that it's saving money. After all, if you use your personal cell phone for business, then you're paying for your cell phone. You're paying for the connection. You're paying for the call. They're not. Use your own laptop. You furnished your laptop, right? On the other hand, if they allow you to interface any of your equipment to the organization's system, your lack security, you yourself, you could introduce viruses, spyware, malware, anything. Not only that, but let's think about this. You have company proprietary information on your laptop. Somebody steals your laptop out of your car. You have company proprietary information on your cell phone. Even anything as innocuous as customer lists and telephone numbers. You lose your cell phone. So what can make it easier for the organization to lose information, either deliberately or accidentally? I mean, consider if I'm using my laptop at work and I put all kinds of company information on it, when I carry it out, who knows what I do with it, right? So not only does this possibly affect you or the company, it can affect anyone else that interfaces with the company. For example, we've talked about CRM in the discussions this week, and that CRM could affect the suppliers. So you might have supplier information on there. Now that gets out. Now we have even worse of an issue. So BYOD, what do you need? You need to have a good bring your own device MIS policy. And always, 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 when MIS or IT has a policy, it applies across the board. It applies to everyone. It applies to Mr. CEO, Mr. CIO, and Mr. Person that pushes a broom down in the driving area. And that's the way policies apply. You will find often someone will say, well, so and so and so and so and so and so and so they're more responsible, la da da. Well, maybe, and then again, maybe not. So it's always a good idea for management and executives to be able to say, look, we follow the same policies that you do, right? And to say that honestly. Let's talk briefly about the Internet of Things. It could be everything from your thermostat to an RFID tag sewed into your clothes, sewn into your shoes. I've talked about this. You could have a device located in your shoe that not only tells how much you weigh, but how far you walk in a day and where you are. Isn't that interesting? You could automatically report that. We bought a new printer a couple months ago. And one of the options for our printer one of the options was to select whether we wanted it to automatically order ink from the company that manufactures the printer when it runs low. Wow. So that means that theoretically not, actually, that printer reports its ink status to the company that manufactures it. If we exercise that option. I said no, but you know what? Nothing at all prevents them from collecting that information anyway. Matter of fact, today I got an email that says, you're low on ink. I'm going, really? That's not very nice, is it? What talk about privacy invasion? If I want to run out of ink, whose business is that? Theirs or mine, okay? So, this Internet of Things. There was an article I read today that by the year 2020, approximately 50% of homes in the U.S. was understood that had a broadband internet connection would be operating as smart homes. That's not like a smartphone, it's like a smart home, which means you walk into the door and you say, house, I would like to have a warm bath, drawn and the fireplace turned down in the pool room, and Henry Mancini or some other person, whatever, playing relaxing music through the rest of the house. And oh, while you're at it, turn on the lights in the upstairs left bedroom, and all of those things would start, and you go, wow. So we have a smart home, and I can walk into the house and do that, right? Well, if you can walk into the house and issue that type of command, and it happened, why would you expect that you could not call your house on your phone when you left the house, when you left work, and that your phone would tell your house how far you were, how long it was going to take for you to arrive, and that all of those things would occur in time for you to have just the right temperature water, just the right temperature in your fireplace, electric or electronically controlled fireplace controlled room, while it was playing the proper music. Why not, right? That's part of the Internet of Things. But think about this. The Internet of Things also applies to your company, right? What happens if you wear your shoes with the Internet of Things reporting thing into work? Now, that's in there. But what happens if your company has parts of Internet of Things? For example, it has refrigerators, and when the quantity of frozen peas in the refrigerator goes below a certain level, it automatically orders replacement peas or something like that, right? So what happens is that the company itself needs to be aware of its weaknesses by the Internet of Things, as well as any external weaknesses from someone else that has their own connections to the Internet of Things. I mean, in some places, some things that could be good. For example, a person with a heart problem has something built into their chest that automatically monitors, and it reports constantly to whenever they walk past a Wi-Fi hotspot, just sends out a thing that says, yeah, things are okay, yeah, things are okay, yeah, things are okay. Next thing you know, they walk past something and they're having some sort of a flutter, and it sends out an alert. The alert goes into Wi-Fi, gets into the internet system, pops up on their doctor's screen, and the next thing you know, there's an ambulance dispatched to help the individual, and they had no idea what's going on. They were just walking around. So that might be a good thing. But in other issues, it could be bad things, right? So, Internet of Things. You need a policy. You need an MIS policy on bring your own device on Internet of Things. Here's another disaster, or another policy that the MIS needs, a disaster recovery plan. For example, make sure that you plan for likely events. Likely. I mean, if you live in the middle of a floodplain, it might be a good idea to plan for floods, right? And disaster recovery must come from the highest executive level. It is not IT's responsibility to keep the business running. It is the business's responsibility to plan for keeping the business running. And we had one of the students in the class made the comment that her organization had a good disaster recovery plan, at least they thought they did, and that they tested it every year, but that testing it was not the same as the real thing. And that is true. At one of the sites where I worked, we had automatic generators and UPSs that when anything happened to the external power, they turned on. We could not even tell that they had come on unless we walked outside and heard the generators running, and we were immediately on emergency power. So our tests were real. If we wanted to test a power loss, all we had to have was someone walk down and throw the breaker to shut off the power. And there was the test, right there, real live, right? And you have to remember that your disaster, if it's a disaster recovery plan, has to include all of those people with which you associate, right? If you're running part of your business and you need people, you constantly need supplies coming in, you cannot supplies that come in, then it does no good for you to have your business up. All right. But here's the deal. Disaster recovery is not a special project. It's not something you do as something that and unusual. It should be the norm. You need to have a disaster recovery plan, not just for the business, MIS, and the business. Okay? So let's think about electronic data retention. Wow, what in the world? Well, the first heading there discusses regulatory compliance. Oh my, what the heck? Think about that. There are regulations that organizations must retain for some period of time, and I'm not sure whether it's 2 years or more, all of the email that passes through their organizational system. Why? Because if someone shows up with a warrant that says we want to see XYZ, that organization has to produce it. They cannot do that if they do not store it. So where does that go? What do you try to do? I mean, that's a lot of data. Think of all the email that somebody gets at work. And then 3,000 people, 4,000 people, 6,000 people working in that facility. Holy cow. So it has to go somewhere, right? So you need to optimize your system to be able to perform and still. And you need to know which documents you have that are in the past and which that are not. And you go, oh, this sounds an awful lot like a knowledge base. Well, it's that too. So it's not just the information that passes through your system to the outside world. It might be what you need to retain. For example, if we wanted a manual of some particular piece of equipment, we did not go to a library and look up the manual or go dig through stacks and stacks of 15-pound pieces of documentation. We walked downstairs and we said, I need a manual. And an hour later, we walked down there and there was a warm manual all set, ready to go. Okay? Electronic data retention. And one thing you need to concern yourself with is making sure that when document formats change, when equipment configurations change, you can still retrieve it. You can still use it. There were a lot of companies that had, and we know someone that worked at a hospital, and she spent her whole day taking paper documents and putting them in electronic format. Scan, 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 scan. That's all she did, day after day after day. Okay? And that's nice. And some of what they did, they used to use microwave films for that. You remember? Pardon me. And so people had reels and reels and reels of microwave copies of all of the important documents that the company had ever had. And you go, wow, what happens when the microwave gets burned? It's gone. So you have to keep documents in some type of usable format. That was one of the big selling points when Adobe came out with PDF, was that you had a universally available format. Not just theirs. Some of the things you need to think about in a hostile workplace. What in the world? Well, think about the company has an obligation to monitor everyone who gets on the internet, on the organization's facilities, using the organization's internet connections, whether it's a bring your own device, whether it's an Internet of Things, or whether it's a company furnished piece of equipment. They go out to the internet. And people that go out and frequent certain sites or do certain things are sort of assumed to participate in particular of these, or have these tendencies, which created the reasons for the government passing the electronic data retention and particularly the electronic data retention regulations. Okay? So it applies to everybody. When you write your hostile workplace or electronic data retention policy, make sure that it includes everyone that enters the site in an official capacity, regardless of why they're there. If they're any of these people, customers, contractors, employees, vendors, da da da, right? In an official capacity. Because if they're there in an official capacity, your organization is responsible for what they do. Okay? Yes, you are. If you furnish them the internet and they do it, you are. Here's something that's interesting. Microsoft versus Linux. Well, back about 11, probably 12 years ago now, maybe, Munich, the Germans, had become very upset with Microsoft. They thought Microsoft wanted too much money for whatever they wanted, and they decided they would go to Linux. And the whole city of Munich, which is the capital of Bavaria there in Germany, would go to Linux. I mean, they could have picked any one of the different set of varieties of Linux types, such as Ubuntu. They could have picked Mint. They could have picked Red Hat. They could have picked whatever, any one of them. And a multitude of Linux versions. They didn't want to do that. They wanted to write their own. So they wrote their own. Then, after having done that, I mean, it probably took 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 years to get everything done and straightened out and working. Microsoft, in conversations with the German government and the city of Munich, offered deals. Good pricing, good licensing, low this, low that, and oh, by the way, we'll build a large facility here, we'll put our executive staff here. And the Munich people went, maybe we ought to go back to Microsoft. And so I think that they did. They really did. They decided they would go back to Microsoft and abandon the Linux. Well, and everybody in the rest of the world, particularly in the Linux world, went, what happened? The Munich IT head, the head of the Munich IT department, that's the city, made that statement. There is no compelling technical reason for returning to Microsoft. So it was not a technical failure on the part of an alternate operating system. It was most likely money. Which brings up issues. When you're working in your MIS capacity, you will come under management pressures, you will come under business pressures, and guess what? Business and management are your bosses. You will accede to and support what they want, what's best for the organization. It may not be the whiz-bang that it could be, and it might not be exactly what you would want, but your position as MIS is to support the organization's choices and decisions as best you can. Okay? So, and just for fun and grins, this is being recorded and running on a Linux Mint system here. That's my primary operating system because I just had some issues with Microsoft, and that was just me. But I did that to you. And something else to remember, and you will find this, many organizations will have 2 or 3 different operating systems. The operating system that they use depends on the objective, the task, and the capability of that operating system to fulfill their requirements at the most reasonable cost within their ability to provide resources to support. Okay? It's a business decision. It's not just an IS decision. And there you go. And no one had any questions for me. So I'd like to thank everyone that attended today. And I'll get this posted up as soon as it finishes processing. So thank you very much, and have a great week.